Stop everything. Stop what you are doing right now. Put your coffee aside, turn off your notifications, and pay absolute attention to every word in this dossier. This is Capital Archives, and what I have to tell you today isn't just another back-page financial news story. While the world is distracted by superficial political headlines and short-term geopolitical gossip, I've dived deep into the raw data of the last 48 hours, and what I've discovered is terrifying. We are witnessing, in real time, the beginning of the end of an era. The two largest banks in China, institutions that manage trillions in assets and serve over 1 billion people, can no longer provide physical gold bars to their customers. Their apps are showing a word that should make any Western investor lose sleep: sold out. And the panic flow already has a new destination. Capital is being redirected en masse into silver. If you have any exposure to the traditional financial system, if you keep your savings in fiat currency, or if you believe the price on your broker screen reflects reality, you need to stay with me until the very end of this document. Before we perform the autopsy on this data, I need you to do something fundamental. Leave a comment below with the phrase "currency archive." This isn't just for the algorithm. It's so we can record who was awake before the paper system collapsed. I read every single one of these comments. Now, let's get to what really matters. I want you to visualize a chart. Not a common candlestick chart full of noise from high-frequency traders. It's a bar chart published on the morning of March 5th by Improved Terminal, using official, audited data from the February monthly report of the Shanghai Gold Exchange, the SGE. The exchange published these figures today, and the numbers are a mathematical anomaly that defies any logic of a stable market. The chart shows the accumulated silver withdrawals from the CG in January and February combined, year over year from 2018 to 2026. Follow the progression with me. In 2018, we had 175 tons. In 2019, 122 tons. In 2020, the number dropped to 65. In 2021, during the post-pandemic frenzy, it jumped to 251 tons. In the following years, it fluctuated between 70 and 170 tons. But look at 2026. The number just recorded is 436.8 tons. The 2026 bars is a skyscraper in a village of one-story houses. It is almost 3 times higher than 2025. It is 70% above 2024 and shattered the previous record from 2021 in just 60 days, just 2 months of this year. The Shanghai Gold Exchange saw 437 tons of silver physically leave its vaults. We need to take a pedagogical pause here because most TV analysts don't understand the mechanics of an SGE withdrawal. In the West, when you trade silver on the COMEX or in London, you are trading paper promises. It's a casino game where 99% of contracts are settled in cash, never in metal. But in China, at the SGE, the game is physical. When silver is withdrawn, it leaves the exchange's custody entirely. It isn't being moved from one shelf to another within the system. It is going into the hands of solar panel manufacturers, investors fearing a yuan collapse, or industrial buyers who know the global stockpile is drying up. Once withdrawn, this silver does not come back. For it to return to the system, someone must mine new metal, refine it, and register it again. In other words, 437 tons of physical silver left the Chinese financial infrastructure in 60 days. This is equivalent to over $1.1 billion at today's paper price, but the real value is incalculable when you realize the stockpile is simply disappearing. Now connect this macro data with the reality on the streets. On the night of March 4th, a financial reporter from the 21st Century Business Herald visited the Kyoyang district in Beijing. What he found was the classic scenario of a silent bank run. Prices for branded gold in physical stores have already broken the 1,600 yuan per gram barrier. But the real shock came in the banking apps. The Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, ICBC, the world's largest bank by assets, and the Agricultural Bank of China, ABC, the fourth largest, simply removed the option to buy investment gold bars. They're sold out. The Bank of Communications doesn't even offer the product anymore. Customers cited in the report claim that before the Lunar New Year, there are still quotas available, but today only silver remains. The pattern is historical and immutable. Gold is the first to be drained. When the metal of kings runs out or becomes prohibitive, the pressure immediately transfers to the metal of the citizens: silver. It happened in 2011, it happened in 2020 during the global lockdown, and it is exactly what we are seeing in Beijing right now. This physical drainage is not an isolated event at the SGE. If we look at the Shanghai Futures Exchange SHFE, which operates in parallel, the daily inventories are a death certificate for the paper market. On February 4th, the warehouses had 423 tons, following a steady months-long decline. To give you an idea of the danger, the historical median for these inventories since 2012 is over 1,100 tons. The peak was 3,000 tons. We are operating 60% below the average and 86% below the peak. James Henry Anderson estimates that the total silver inventory in Chinese exchanges today is approximately 752 tons. Sound like a lot. China consumes about 230 million ounces of silver per year to fuel its solar and tech industries. 752 tons represent a mere 5 weeks of consumption. The world's greatest industrial power is just 35 days away from running out of a single ounce of physical silver in its central stockpiles. As Anderson pointed out, either the price of silver rises violently to attract new metal into the vaults, or the withdrawal system will be halted by the government. There is no third way of stability. While the East drains every available gram, the West seems to be in a state of catatonic denial. But the COMEX data, analyzed by David Jensen, reveals that the bleeding is global. Registered silver inventories at the COMEX have been falling at a rate of 20 million ounces per month for the last 6 months. This isn't a crisis spike, it's a constant hemorrhage. We went from 200 million ounces to a mere 88 million in March. If we project this drainage rate, the COMEX, the central pillar of metal pricing in the West, could hit zero registered inventory in about 100 trading days. September 2026 could be ground zero the moment the music stops and there are no physical chairs for anyone. The COMEX is being drained at a rate equivalent to 30% of the entire planet's monthly mining production. And here we enter the geological lie that sustains the paper price. Global annual silver production is about 820 million ounces. There is no button you can press to create more silver. There is no quantitative easing for metal. Mining is a slow, expensive, and inelastic process. The geological extraction ratio in the Earth's crust is approximately 8 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold. But look at the market price. Gold is priced 60, 70, sometimes 80 times higher than silver. This divergence between physical reality and the fiduciarily manipulated price is the greatest anomaly of the modern era, and it is about to be corrected in the most painful way possible, through a supply collapse. The bears in the market argue that technology will save the system. They point to Longi Green Energy in the attempt to replace silver with copper in solar panels. But Capital Archives brings the technical reality. Copper presents serious oxidation problems in silicon, drastically reducing the efficiency and lifespan of solar cells over time. The market's dominant technology, TOPCon cells, is addicted to silver. Even with attempts to reduce usage, the solar sector is expected to consume nearly 200 million ounces this year. Demand isn't just rising, it's accelerating due to artificial intelligence, which requires data centers with high conductivity electronics where silver is irreplaceable. To make matters worse for Western exchanges, India has entered the game with a voracious hunger. In the last 30 days, about 45 million ounces of silver flowed into the Indian subcontinent. India and China, the world's two largest populations, are simultaneously absorbing physical silver as if there were no tomorrow. What is left for Western exchanges and ETFs? Almost nothing. The price you see on the screen, the $30 or $35, is the paper price, influenced by Federal Reserve algorithms and interest rate expectations. But the real price, the Shanghai price, already shows a glaring divergence, trading with premiums that indicate the physical market has already broken. We are at a historic fork in the road. On one side, the paper system based on debt, derivatives, and promises that cannot be kept. On the other, the physical reality of the East, which is accumulating every gram of real metal while the West sleeps. When the divergence between what is on paper and what is in the vault becomes too great, the system breaks. And the break is never gradual. It is a limit-down event, followed by a supply vacuum. The Shanghai Gold Exchange data published today is the smoke signal preceding the fire. If you understand the magnitude of what has been presented here, you know that the time to act is running out. At Capital Archives, we don't look at opinions. We look at the flow of metal. Silver is leaving the stage. It is fleeing to the east. And when the Western investor finally wakes up to this reality, they will find that the paper price no longer buys anything in the physical world. Stay alert. Protect your capital. The game is changing, and today's data is the ultimate proof that the countdown has begun. What we are witnessing at the Shanghai Gold Exchange isn't just a statistical spike. It's a paradigm shift in global financial infrastructure. To understand why these 436 tons withdrawn in just 60 days represent the end of the pricing system as we know it, we need to dive into the hidden mechanics of arbitrage between East and West. Historically, London and New York dictated the price of precious metals. The price was established by derivative contracts on the COMEX and the LBMA, and the rest of the world simply accepted it. But China is tired of just being a price taker. By creating the Shanghai Gold Exchange, Beijing established a market where physical delivery is the rule, not the exception. And what the 2026 chart tells us is that Chinese smart money and state industries have decided that Western paper no longer has value. They are exercising the right to physical delivery on a scale that global mining cannot support. Think of the industrial impact. Silver is the most reflective and electrically conductive metal on the periodic table. It isn't just an investment. It is the DNA of modernity. When you look at a field of solar panels, you are seeing millions of ounces of silver capturing photons. When you look at an electric vehicle from BYD or Tesla, you are seeing kilometers of wiring and contacts coated in silver to ensure battery efficiency. The artificial intelligence revolution, which everyone celebrates as the engine of the economy of the future, depends entirely on semiconductors and servers that use silver in their soldering points and high-speed connections to prevent overheating. Now, cross this explosive demand with SHFE inventories that are 86% below their peak. What you have is a recipe for the short squeeze of the century. The gold availability crisis in China's largest banks, ICBC and ABC, is the final catalyst. When the average citizen in Beijing or Shanghai tries to protect their savings from currency devaluation and finds the doors closed for gold, they don't go home and accept the risk. They buy what is available. And what is available now, though for a limited time, is silver. This transfer of demand from a $400 asset to a $30 one creates buying pressure that the silver market, which is tiny compared to gold, simply cannot absorb without a price explosion. James Henry Anderson was precise in stating that China is operating with only 5 weeks of industrial inventory. Imagine the panic in a solar panel factory employing 20,000 people when the silver supply runs out. They won't look at the COMEX price in New York, they will pay whatever premium is necessary to keep the machines running. That is when the paper price permanently detaches from the physical price. In the West, the official narrative tries to downplay the problem. David Jensen noted that COMEX inventories are being consistently drained, but the financial media prefers to focus on whether the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates by 0.25% in June or July. They are ignoring the fact that the physical collateral of the market is evaporating. The drainage rate of 20 million ounces per month at the COMEX is unsustainable. If you have 88 million ounces and lose 20 million every 30 days, the math is cruel and fast. We are a few months away from a force majeure event where Western exchanges will have to declare they cannot deliver the metal and will offer cash settlements instead. But for an industrial manufacturer or an Eastern central bank, fiat paper is useless for building technology or securing reserves. They want the metal. Geology, as always, will have the final word. Silver mines are not like oil taps. You cannot simply increase the pressure. Most silver is extracted as a byproduct of copper, zinc, and lead mining. If the demand for these industrial metals doesn't rise in the same proportion, silver production remains stagnant regardless of the price. We are seeing a structural deficit that has lasted for years, covered by above-ground stocks that have now, as today's GE data shows, come to an end. The geological ratio of 8-1 in the Earth's crust against the 80-1 pricing in the paper market is proof that we live in a financial distortion that can no longer be sustained. India, by importing 45 million ounces in a single month, sealed the fate of Western inventories. The metal is flowing to where it is valued. At Capital Archives, we monitor these flows because they precede the great shifts in wealth. What is happening in 2026 is not just a rally in silver. It is the recognition that the paper system has failed to correctly price the most vital metal of the technological era. The Shanghai Gold Exchange has just sounded the alarm. Gold has vanished from Chinese banking apps. Silver is being withdrawn at a record rate. And the COMEX is bleeding to death. The collapse of the paper price is not a possibility. It is a mathematical inevitability. The question remains for you. When the system finally admits it doesn't have the metal, what will you have in your hands? Digital promises or the real asset that the East is fighting to accumulate? The data does not lie. The 2026 bars chart from the SGE is a monument to the end of price manipulation. Stay tuned for the next reports. Capital Archives will continue here, tracking every ton, every withdrawal, and every break in the system so you won't be caught by surprise when the music finally stops. The time of paper silver is over. The era of physical silver has only just begun. The depth of this abyss between the derivative market and the physical market becomes even clearer when we analyze the psychology of the BRICS central banks. It isn't just China. It is a coordinated de-dollarization movement through real assets. When the ICBC and the Agricultural Bank of China halt gold sales, they are sending a coded message to the system. The gold we have is strategic and will no longer be dispersed to retail at this price. This forces the masses towards silver, creating what we call the whip effect in commodities. Silver, having a much narrower market, reacts far more violently. The withdrawal of 437 tons in 60 days is the beginning of this whipping. Consider the exchange infrastructure. The Shanghai Futures Exchange and the Shanghai Gold Exchange are not just trading venues. They are centers of gravity for power. By allowing inventories to drop to such low levels, 86% below peak, China is signaling that it prefers to have the metal in the real economy rather than stored in warehouses to sustain a global pricing system it no longer controls. This flight to the east is the largest physical liquidity drain in history. David Jensen is right to focus on the COMEX, but the real panic will come from London. The LBMA is the heart of the paper market, and the flows suggest that London's vaults are being emptied to meet demand from India and China. The 103-day countdown to the COMEX depletion is based on current trends. But in the financial market, trends are not linear. They are exponential. When the market realizes that inventory is reaching critical levels, all paper contract holders will demand delivery simultaneously. It is the equivalent of a theater on fire where there is only one small exit door. Those at the front, China and India, are already leaving with the metal. The Western investors at the back of the room, believing the price is low because the market is calm. But the calm is an illusion. The real volatility is hidden in the monthly GE reports that most ignore. The industrial issue is the final nail in the coffin of low prices. We cannot forget that silver is a war metal. In times of global conflict and geopolitical instability, the demand for military electronics, missile systems, and satellite communication skyrockets. Each precision-guided missile contains kilograms of silver in its circuits. With global tensions rising in 2026, military demand is directly competing with clean energy demand and investment demand. Silver is being attacked on 3 simultaneous fronts, and supply is unable to respond. Therefore, when we look at the news that banking apps in Beijing are sold out, we don't just see a logistical problem. We see the sign of a system that is ruptured. The paper price of silver can be manipulated for some time by selling short contracts that have no metal. The physical market is a ruthless judge. You cannot manufacture a solar panel with a COMEX future contract. You need the metal. And as the March 5th data shows, the metal is disappearing. Capital Archives will continue to monitor this divergence. We believe we are very close to the moment when the price of silver will simply jump to a new level, where there will no longer be trading for paper, only exchanges for assets of equivalent value. Protect yourself. The time of illusion is ending. The scenario unfolding for the second half of 2026 is one of an unprecedented supply crisis. With the massive withdrawal of silver from Chinese exchanges and the consistent drainage of the COMEX, we have entered a liquidity vacuum zone. In the financial market, a liquidity vacuum occurs when there are no sellers at any reasonable price. If China truly has only 5 weeks of industrial inventory, April will be the turning point. Either we will see the price of silver double in weeks to attract scrap and divestment supplies, or we will see the shutdown of entire assembly lines in the Asian tech sector. The divergence between the price in Shanghai and the price in New York, the so-called arbitrage gap, has never been more dangerous. Normally, this difference is small and quickly closed by traders who buy where it's cheap and sell where it's expensive. But now the premium in Shanghai is persistent and high. Why aren't traders closing this gap? Because they cannot obtain physical metal in the West to send to the East at the necessary speed. The global metal logistics system is clogged. Refineries are working at full capacity, and Indian demand is consuming any excess before it even reaches the port. James Henry Anderson's mention of the Chinese government possibly halting withdrawals is the black swan scenario no one wants to admit. If China shuts down its exports and limits its GE withdrawals, the price of silver in the rest of the world will explode instantly, as the market realizes the largest source of physical liquidity has been removed. Gold has already given the warning in Chinese banking apps. Silver is next. The March 5th report isn't just a table of numbers. It's the manifesto of a new financial system, where the physical dictates the rule and the paper is discarded. At Capital Archives, our mission is to unmask the farce of the paper price. The 103-day countdown on the COMEX and the imminent depletion at the GE are the two stopwatches defining your financial security today. If you are waiting for the price to drop to buy, you might be waiting for a ship that has already sailed for Shanghai. Physical silver is not just an investment in 2026, it has become a tool for economic survival. The data is there. China is draining the world. India is absorbing the rest. And the West is left holding handfuls of worthless paper. Choose your side of history now, before the April report confirms what the March one has already made clear. The great silver escape has just hit escape velocity.